Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to start my contribution to this bill by reflecting on the speech that the Minister gave when he introduced the second reading back into the House. Because Mr Finlayson cannot get through a speech in this Parliament without being nasty towards the opposition parties. And I want to do something now that Mr Finlayson himself seems incapable of doing. I want to acknowledge Christopher Finlayson's contribution to the arts in New Zealand. He is somebody who was on the Creative New Zealand board during the term of the last Labor government. He's somebody who has personally contributed to the arts in Wellington, certainly, at a nationwide level as well, sometimes with his own resources, and I think that is something that is to be applauded. It would be nice, Mr Speaker, if similarly Mr Finlayson were able to acknowledge that funding of the arts did not start during Keith Holyoake's time, pause whenever a Labor government was elected, and then restart when he came down from heaven to beneficently look after the arts community in this country. And I think Mr Finlayson would be well served to actually reflect on his time on the Arts Council when a Labor government was in place, when many millions of dollars were reinvested in the arts sector that had been struggling during the 1990s. The so-called Arts Recovery Package, which was necessary because funding had not followed the good intentions of the Jim Bolger-led government. So Mr Finlayson is somebody who can stand proudly on his record as a funder and contributor to the arts scene, but perhaps could just bring a little good grace to the House every now and then and reflect on the things that have been done by others in this area. Mr Speaker, the bill that's in front of us has been already outlined by the Minister and by Charles Chauvel. The essence of the Labor Party's concern with this bill does relate to the changes that have been made in terms of the composition of the Arts Council and the disestablishment of Te Waka Toi and the South Pacific Arts Committee. I'm going to come back specifically to those, but I want to note a contribution that the Human Rights Commission made in their submission on the bill. And what they said was that what the newly formed Arts Council, the 13 people who will now be responsible for all of the funding decisions, all of the overall decisions of Creative New Zealand, what the Human Rights Commission said was that they would need to make up for the loss of distinctive identity of Te Waka Toi and the South Pacific Arts Council. Now that is a very, very difficult thing for those groups to be able, for that group to be able to do. And then the Human Rights Commission went on to say the Council should endeavour to actively retain the special character of the former entities. I put it to the government, Mr Speaker, that will not be possible with the body of 13 people. Te Waka Toi has had a particularly specific role in doing exactly what the Human Rights Commission told the Select Committee that needed to happen, to actively retain the special character of the work that they do. And if we actually look at what Te Waka Toi's purpose is, it's to specifically consider applications for funding through Creative New Zealand by Māori, for Māori and the world, as well as managing their own awards and scholarships. That role that Te Waka Toi has undertaken, I do not believe will be undertaken in a way that protects the distinctive characteristics that the Human Rights Commission asked for, even with having 4 representatives who the Minister appoints who have some knowledge of tikanga Māori. I simply don't believe that Te Waka Toi's distinctive character will be able to be kept up. And that is one of the fundamental reasons why, Mr Speaker, the Labor Party continues to oppose this bill. There are some changes that could be made to the way Creative New Zealand runs, to the way the Arts Council runs, to make it more efficient. But I think by disestablishing Te Waka Toi and disestablishing the South Pacific Arts Committee, that has gone too far. I believe that the body of 13 that has now been created will struggle to continue to provide, as everyone I think in this House agrees, and certainly as the former Arts Council legislation and this legislation says, that art is for all New Zealanders. Now, the ability to create a system that can deliver on that promise isn't easy. And I'm certainly not saying that the Minister, in going into this exercise, thinks he's come up with an easy option. He's come up with a streamlined option, which I don't believe will allow for that purpose of arts being for all New Zealanders to be delivered on. Mr Speaker, when people came to the Select Committee, in general, the organisations that came to the Select Committee raised these concerns and hoped that there would be changes that would be made by the committee to deal with that. There have been some small changes, and we should acknowledge them. The Human Rights Commission recommended to the committee that Clause 10.5 be altered to allow a person with knowledge of the Pacific arts and knowledge of cultures and traditions of Pacific communities to be appointed. That's a useful change in terms of the bill, but it does not actually provide for the kind of knowledge and distinctive identity that the South Pacific Arts Committee has previously put forward. As my colleague Charles Chauvel said, it is of the nature of these kinds of bodies that many of the people with concerns about these issues don't actually put submissions in, because they are the very people who need to get funding from these bodies. And certainly I have received comment from a number of Māori artists in particular who are very concerned about the demise of Te Whakatoi and don't believe that the new Arts Council will be able to deliver on promoting the distinctive identity of Māori arts in New Zealand. Mr Speaker, one of the other changes that was made relates to the definition of community arts, and again the Arts Participation Charitable Trust came before the Select Committee and asked for the definition around community arts to be widened. The committee agreed with that. That is also a useful change. But it again begs the question of whether a body of 13 people will be able to sufficiently support community arts. Many New Zealanders have their interaction with the creative world through community arts organisations. New Zealanders are amazingly active at a local level in the arts. And Creative New Zealand is tasked with an incredibly difficult job of trying to fund things from Mr Finlayson's higher art through to community level arts programs. That is a very difficult mandate, Mr Speaker, and anything that can be done in the legislation, anything that can be done in the way we structure the Arts Council that supports community arts, we should be doing, in my view. I believe this bill does not capture that. So specifically for those three reasons, the fact that Māori arts the distinctive character cannot be upheld by a 13-member board, that the Pacific Arts Committee has been disestablished, and that also means that those issues will not be upheld by that board. And also because community arts are not sufficiently supported and identified in here, I don't believe that the Arts Council is going to be able to fulfil the role that we wanted to fulfil. Mr Speaker, there are some other issues which we can come to during the committee stages where we have some specific concerns. But in summary, it would be fair to say that we are all looking for an Arts Council, Creative New Zealand as it's colloquially known, that is a body that can uphold New Zealanders' interests in the arts. What we want is a structure that ensures that all New Zealanders can look at that body and say, my applications will be fairly treated, my interests will be developed and fostered. The structure that the Minister has put in front of us today, while it might be in his mind an answer to those questions, I don't believe gets it right. What changes there are in here that will be useful, unfortunately, are overwhelmed by the taking away of representation for this. And that is a very interesting point that Mr Little makes. By restricting down to 13 members of this board, we run the risk that once again from this national government, the hint of cronyism will arise, the hint of who will be appointed to this very significant body. Well, it's only a hint at the moment. We've certainly seen plenty of examples of cronyism in other areas. In this area, we have seen good Arts Council boards in recent years. I would hate to think that by changing the structure, it will move more towards the concerns we've seen with New Zealand on here. Mr Speaker, the Labour Party is unable to support these changes to the Arts Council structure because we do not believe the new body will be able to fairly provide for the purpose of this bill of arts for all New Zealanders and support the distinctive cultures, Māori, Pacific and other in New Zealand.
Speaker.